like
Welcome to Just a Few More Minutes podcast, where three veterans of the animation and video game industry talk about exactly that, animation and video games. I am one of your hosts. I am Jeff Gabor. I am an animator at Blue Sky Studios.
Yep. I'm Michael. I'm also an animator at Blue Sky Studios. I thought you were going to introduce me like you always do. You change it every episode.
I know. I like to do that.
I'm Pete. I am a contract animator on a bunch of different stuff.
Yeah, you.
With a resume such as BioShock, Madden, Overwatch, Ice Age 2.
Yeah, I did a talk recently, the other night, like about my career and stuff, and it came up that like one of the scenes I animated in BioShock was like the torture scene of Elizabeth, and they're like, one of my friends was like, "Man, you go from animating these really cute squirrels to like torturing people."
It's quite
That's
a career.
the life of an animator.
Yeah. So I miss you guys. It's been, what, a month now?
Yeah. This whole
About
month thing.
Anything cool happen to you guys at all?
Monster Hunter. Like, legit Monster Hunter is all that I care about anymore. I love that game, man.
I know.
I'm obsessed.
I bought it. I got to the online part, and I just haven't had a chance to jump on.
Oof, that's going to be rough. Well, I mean, if you play by yourself, that's fine, but we're all high rank now, so the low rank stuff is like, ugh. I could do it. I could still play with you, but I won't get anything out of it except being a swell friend.
Well, we can always play, like, and you can help me just kind of get used to the game, and then I wouldn't ask you to do any more than that.
Yeah, totally. It is a fucking fun game. What's new with you, peeps?
I've just been playing Celeste over and over and over again, like trying to go into the extra levels that exist after, the main campaign, whatever you want to call it. Really fun game. I would say I'm obsessed with it.
Fun fact, since I'm doing my podcast doodles now, I decided I'm going to do some Celeste fan art this episode.
Nice, dude. That's awesome.
It's going to be cool.
Yeah, go ahead, Pete.
I was going to say, I started playing Celeste. I played through the first... I've played through several levels, and then I just haven't gotten back to it. I've been really busy lately. Just everything has ramped completely up, and I've been working till like 11:30 at night every day.
How was your talk at the retro festival thing?
I actually didn't end up going. I was pretty bummed about it. Because there was like a lot of snow in the forecast, and it was coinciding with when I'd have to be back home. So I just decided not to. It sucked because I spent a lot of time putting all this shit together and selling and getting it ready to sell, and now I'm like surrounded by piles of old games and whatnot. It's just crazy.
Hey, well, any of our listeners, if you want to buy Pete's shit, it's available.
Should we point out that this is likely our first, I mean, I guess it would be obvious, but our first podcast where there's video?
Yeah.
Hey.
Oh, fuck. I forgot we were doing that.
Yeah. So no picking your nose.
Got it.
I know, I actually didn't think about it, which is why my hair is completely flat and not anything like how I usually have it, but whatever.
So let's just point out for everybody looking at Jeff for the first time. Normally he has his hair spiked in like the douchiest way possible. But just kidding, it looks great. It's very iconically Jeff.
Okay.
I like the little swirl thing you got going on there.
Yeah, the wave swoop.
Yeah, it's got a little bit of Superman in there.
See, the problem with this, and now we're just like looking at ourselves, but the problem with these headphones is they smush my big, beautiful curls.
Oh, yeah. That's...
Like, it messes up my... Oh, man, now I'm all like worried about whatever.
All right.
Moving on.
How about let's get back to our animation tip of the week.
Cool. All right.
That's what they are now, right? Animation tip of the month.
Yeah, and this is like a pretty shitty one. But tip for you. If you're working with motion blur, you should, and you got a shot that's 20 frames, you should still animate the frame before and the frame after your shot. So motion blur and all that stuff works. As well as Pete was mentioning before, if you animate something off frame, keep animating it a little bit more because that shadow will still stay there if it's rendered and lit and everything.
Yeah, so. I can't tell you how many times like the TAs, the technical animation team, needs to go in and continue animation because someone will walk just off screen and then you just see them stop and their shadow looks ridiculous. And
their shadow just stops.
Yeah. Or like props, like you'll throw an object off screen and then you'll be able to see the shadow just stop. That happens all the time.
I remember having so many problems with that when I worked on robots because everything was reflection.
Oh yeah,
there's so many reflections in that shit. So
that's funny.
That sucks. But yeah, the motion blur thing. If you're working at a studio, you should ask where the sample frame is taken from, or like how it calculates motion blur. Because when Pete and I first started at Blue Sky, the sample frame was taken ahead of time. So, like, it doesn't matter. But it matters to know, like, if your sample frame is taken after your frame. So, if it's like your pose is at 102, your sample might be at 102.4 to know, like, where it's going or where it's coming from your blur. You're like, where your shutter. Like, if you're thinking of a camera, right? Its shutter opens for a certain amount of time and then closes. And the exposure, if something's moving really fast, it creates a blur because it's moving during that entire shutter time. So you really want to ask, when does the shutter open and close at your studio? And then you can then work backwards and figure out your motion blur.
Then you can do cool tricks with the motion blur if you're a M-blur master like I am. I'm just going to fucking say it. I'm amazing at it. It's really fun.
It is.
When you can cheat stuff.
Yeah. When you finally realize how you can manipulate renderers through that, you feel like a god. It is fun. Like, you really get to... Because you realize, as an animator, you're really only animating half of your shot. And you're letting the computer do the other half, unless you know how to control the motion blur.
Yep. One of my shots that I'm working on right now, Jeff... Sorry, Pete. I haven't even shown Jeff yet, but there's plans for some fun motion blur business for that one. So stay tuned, supervisor.
I can't wait.
You should probably mention that whatever sort of things you do on subframes should be saved to the end.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you definitely want to.
People don't start blocking shit in on subframes.
That would be ridiculous. Yeah. It's always the last thing. When you say you're doing a polish pass, that's what you mean. Like, into addition to tying loose ends, but it means doing the subframe stuff, which no director, anybody's ever going to buy off on. Your supervisors won't know anything about, but you will. You'll know.
You'll know.
Cool.
Mm-hmm. So tonight's also a big night because we have a guest.
Woo!
Yeah.
Have we been ignoring him this whole time?
Kind of.
No.
We'll get him in. Yeah, we'll get him in. But it's Patrick Hickey Jr. Should I give a little rundown on who he is before we do the interview, or have him join us first?
Yeah, you can do a rundown, and then we'll have him join us.
All right, great. Well, Patrick Hickey is he's an assistant director of journalism program at the Kingsborough Community College in New York. He's been covering the video game industry for over a decade. He is also the founder and editor-in-chief of ReviewFix.com, which is a website that reviews all things media from music to games to WWF, basically everything in the middle of that. And he also has a new book coming out called The Minds Behind the Games, interviews with cult and classic video game developers that covers over 35 games from the perspective of the artists that created them. So it's quite exciting. We got to read some excerpts from it, and it's really... I thought it was fantastic. I don't know what you guys said. I doubt you're going to bash it before he comes on.
Oh, no.
But I thought it was great.
Yeah, it was very interesting. Entertaining.
I don't know how much we could say about it. We'll have to ask him.
Yep.
But
so, you guys want to jump into that interview?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, this previously recorded interview.
It does make it sound like we previously recorded it.
That's what makes it sound professional.
Oh yeah, we previously recorded. So now the awesome interview that we knew turned out fantastic and probably didn't have any technical issues. Hopefully. All right, now on to our interview with Patrick. Patrick Hickey Jr., welcome to the JAFMM podcast.
Thank you, guys.
Whoa.
Whoa.
Do the Jurassic World honest trailer.
In a world where fucking dinosaurs just beat the shit out of people, starring Jeff Goldblum.
What's
That's
up, guys?
pretty
How you
amazing.
doing?
Good, man.
We're doing good.
Thanks for being on the for agreeing to come onto the podcast.
No, man. Like Pete's a guy I followed his work for quite some time. So when he asked me, I was like, hell yeah, man. So anything to be, associated with you guys all do great work. So happy to be a part.
No, thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, how did you come about, like, knowing Pete's work? Because the way Pete tells it, you're like some sort of savant that you figured out who Pete was.
No, because you know what it is? It's like ever since I wrote the book, I've been getting friend requests from like the craziest fucking people, I'm telling you, I swear to God, some of them are like Russian singles and they're kind of hot. So like I'll talk to them and then I find out that they're, not a real person. But no, but like a lot of video game developers. And the thing is too, I told Pete, I'm the guy that like reads the credits in the back of game manuals and shit like that, and likes to read through, like watch the whole movie and read through the credits and stuff like that. So I'm probably, and I'm sorry, Pete, if I piss you off, and I don't want to piss off any like white guys from Boston because they're tough, but Gladius was an awesome fucking game back in the day. Like 10 years ago, that was a really like underrated. Welly, I can't even speak English. I'm an English professor. Beautifully animated game, and I'm well aware of his work on BioShock Infinite and stuff like that. So I like to be the guy that like if somebody says, "Oh, this person, that person," that I know them. So like it came up, and I'm like, that's interesting. And I'm like, that's a game developer. I'm like, I know that name from somewhere. So I looked him up, and I'm like, yes. That's the guy. So then I said, did you work on BioShock and Gladius? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, dude, you're awesome, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because it was weird when you asked me that because I was like, nobody knows who I am. So
yeah,
it's strange to me. But,
yeah, so like when you knew who I was like, nobody knows who I am. So, so
we're all just a bunch of beautiful strangers making cool ass shit.
That's the goal, isn't it? It's like we all try and get to that prime, that little sweet spot where everything kind of slows down and we can kind of control space and time. And you guys are all doing it now, and I just feel like the past 2 years, the last 10 years have finally like meant something. All the hard work I've been putting in for the past 10 years have finally like kind of come together. And all of a sudden, I'm starting to get better interviews, and everything's starting to fall into place. So, Pete messaging me was it like made my week. I was telling people, yo, what are like the animators from fucking BioShock Infinite? And they're like, you, and they said the same thing you guys said. They're like, the animators from BioShock Infinite? And I'm like, yeah, I know that you guys don't know the names. Like, I'm hanging out in a video game store, and they don't know shit. And I'm like, that's part of the reason why I wrote the book. Like, I remember when I first started writing the book, there was this guy, and I'm not going to reveal his name because he's probably listening. He has no life. It's like 60,000 followers on Instagram, and this guy's got like, I have a nice video game collection. I have probably like over 3,000 games, and but this guy's collection blows mine out of the water. Like, I went from feeling like Peter North walking in the video game store to feeling like nobody, But it's like I'm talking to him about video games, and this guy doesn't know shit. And I'm like, dude, you have this huge following, this huge fan base of people. You're taking pictures of like all these great games that you own, and you don't know shit about them. And he's like, oh, well, it's not, so important that, who designed them, but it's, that they play well. I'm like, you're a fucking idiot. I'm like, you are an idiot, So the whole, the way the idea for the game came was my wife was pregnant, and I didn't want to be one of those people that always had that, oh, I could have been a contender nonsense. And I'd been covering video games for about 10 years for NBC, Examiner, My Site, and I'm the assistant director of the journalism program in Kingsborough Community College in Brooklyn. It's a good school in the city university system, but I've been there for about 10 years, and I was just getting a little bored. And I went to my boss. I'm like, we should create like a new class, like a multimedia journalism class. And he was kind of like, it's not really in the cards. And I'm like, dude, I'm really like bored. I think I'm gonna write a book. And he's like, yeah, go write a book. So I
well, that's awesome.
I went home and I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm gonna write a book. And my wife was like, listen, if I hear that you're gonna write a book one more time, like I'm gonna get really pissed off. So instead of talking about writing a book, you should just write a book. So the idea of doing a video game book came pretty naturally because like I've been interviewing developers for such a long time, and I sent out like 6 pitches one day. It was like a week before Halloween. It was like Howard Scott Warshaw for Yar's Revenge, Michael Menheim for Mutant League Football, David Crane for Boy and His Blob, like John Van Keegan for Warriors of Heroes of Might and Magic / King's Bounty, like all these like nerdy cool games that I didn't think a lot of people knew a lot about. Yeah. And I said, if half of them got back to me, then I'd have enough to write a book. And within like 3 or 4 days, all of them got back to me and said yes. So I was like, wow. I'm like, dude. I'm like, we're cooking, baby. And by that was like a week before Halloween. So by Thanksgiving, I had all 6 of those chapters written. And I pitched it to a bunch of places, and 3 days later, McFarlane came back to me, and they were like, yeah, we totally want to publish it. They're like, when can you have it finished? So now at this point, I only have like 6 people, and they're like, oh, well, you're probably going to need like 20 to meet like the minimum word count. So I'm like, shit, I have to like really hustle. But I'm like, yeah, I could have it done by May. I was totally talking out of my ass, and I was like, yeah, I could have it done by May. And they're like, okay, no problem. So thank God I'm a college professor, like a full-time college professor. I only work like 4 or 5 hours a day. So, I mean, I wish I was kidding, but, it's like, it's a hard 4 or 5 hours, it's like you're talking in front of people. I mean, Pete, you know this, but, the other times you're grading. So, I mean, I go into work early, I stay a little later, but I mean, I was writing on the bus going to work. I was writing on the bus going home. My wife was pregnant, so she would come home. I'd rub her feet for 20 minutes and she'd be out like a light. So, I mean, I was writing 8 to 10 hours a day, and I remember, like, around Christmas time, I'm like, there's no way I'm going to have enough sources for this book. I'm like, I've sent out, like, 100, 150 pitches. I'm like, fuck, man, shit. I was so mad. Pardon my French if I'm cursing too much. Nope. But you're like, nope. And then just something happened, like, around Christmas time. I remember Brian Fargo, he's a legend, Brian Fargo. Like, he's one of the guys from In Exile Entertainment, Interplay, Bard's Tale, Fallout. He messages me on like Christmas Eve, and he's like, yeah, I'm in the mall buying some gifts for my kids, but yeah, I'd love to talk to you. And I'm like, oh my God. And then Michael Brook, who's like one of the masterminds behind like the first 3 or 4 NHL games for the Genesis, he's like, yeah, I'd talk to you. And then all of a sudden it's like Jamie Fristrom, who did Spider-Man 1 and 2 for the PlayStation 2, which are 2 of my favorite comic book based video games of all time. He said yes. So then all of a sudden, and it's like I fart and I go from like not having enough content to having 36 games and over like 55 developers. So it was just a whirlwind. I remember while my wife was in labor, the developer of Bully for the PS2 messaged me back, and he's like, oh, here are your answers, blah blah blah. And we're messaging on Facebook. I'm like, yeah, dude, I'm sorry, I really can't talk. My wife like popping a turkey out of her right yet, So it was like nice enough my wife was letting me watch wrestling while she was in labor, so it's like I'm not gonna text at the same time, So, but it was just a crazy process. Like I've busted so many people's balls to make sure that I got like all of my ducks in a row for this, and it's probably one of the most exhilarating experiences of my life, because it's like this is probably the topic away from hockey that I love the most, that I could write about for the rest of my life, and I plan on writing for the rest of my life. So that's how it all came to be, and that's how it is, and that's how it will be.
Well, I don't know how that came about, but you already have some pretty flattering reviews on Amazon.
Do I?
That's why I mean. Or certainly, there's whatever the blurbs about it.
Oh yeah.
But that.
We'll see.
Yeah, how does that work?
Sorry.
No, how does is? It sounds like you're like, oh yeah, those are not real. But
what I did was, it's like I've learned so much about marketing through this. So it's like after I had like 4 or 5 chapters written, I was already pitching like video game conventions to go talk about the game. You hear me? About the book to people. And after I wrote a couple of chapters, I started sending sample chapters to I sent them to Huffington Post, to Forbes, to the New York Daily News, to like any person that I thought would be like really cool, you know. And that's how I got a lot of those blurbs. Like the guy from Forbes, I sent him like I had like 15 chapters written, and I'm like, I'll send you everything that I have written so far. Like I will finish it. I already have a publishing deal, so you're not going to be like writing an article or writing a blurb about a book that'll never exist, you know? And he was like, yeah, no problem. So I've done all of the marketing for this book myself. Every single interview, every single podcast, I've done it all myself. Like my publisher, McFarlane, they're really good, but they are a academic nonfiction publisher, and they have like a set demographic where they feel like that they don't really even need to market because they sell to libraries, they sell to schools and stuff like that. So, but my whole thing is, it's like when Beyonce's coming out with an album, she markets it for months, even a year before it comes out. She lets people know. So like I've marketed the hell out of this book. Like I made a Facebook page. I got, after my first role in a video game, I got an agent. Somebody reached out to me and they're like, I want to represent you. And I'm like, listen, I'm not just a voice actor, I'm an author too. So she set me up with the site. So it's like, that's how I got all of those things, just nonstop, like pushing the product, pushing the whole brand and the whole like thing that I want it to be.
That's pretty awesome, man. So you mentioned a lot of games, and you sent us the chapter list of this book, and there's like so many crazy stories. You basically had the pick of the litter. Like, how did you go about choosing all the games you wanted to cover? There's so many. The thing that sucks is, it's like after I wrote the book, like 5 or 6 more people got back to me, and the thing is, the book is at like its maximum word count. It's at 100,000 words, so it's going to be without pictures, like 400 pages, and so I already have like enough to like start a sequel. So like the guys from, I'm not sure if you guys remember the game Loaded for PlayStation 1. Yeah.
Like, that game was fucking great. That game was so bloody it made my grandmother throw up. Like I love it. I remember showing my grandmother, I'm like, Grandma, you gotta like check this game out. And she like threw up in her hands. It was fantastic. I'll never forget it. But I've been playing. I'm 34. I've been playing games since I'm like literally 2 years old. Like I remember watching my father play Legend of Zelda and like, you know, Wonder Boy and stuff like that. And I've kept like pretty much every game I've ever played my entire life. I'm not one of those people that like their parents sold all their games and their action figures and shit on them. Like I made sure that I kept all of that. So I have like a little mini like shrine, you know, man cave and stuff. So I remember I was just sitting in there and I'm like, what games should people know more about? And I just started picking games off of my shelves, and I went on mobygames.com, I went on Facebook, I went on Wikipedia, I went on LinkedIn, I went on every social media platform that I could to find all of these people. And the thing is, I wanted a nice mix of games. I wanted classic games, I wanted cult games, but there's also some indie games in there that have really great stories in there, like To the Moon and Mushroom 11 and stuff like that. So it's like,
man, To the Moon is amazing story.
And the thing with To the Moon is like, it's like, the creator is probably one of the sweetest men you will ever meet in your entire life, and he composed the entire score to that game too. So it's like he was one of those kids that didn't have a lot of friends in high school, and he would just play the piano during his lunch break, and that's where most of the score was written, you know. So it's like an amazing game, an amazing guy, and then a lot of people don't even know what To the Moon is. You know, it's like an 8-bit film. It's so beautiful. Like if you don't cry at the end of that game, you're a communist. You know. So
it's pretty amazing too that to make it, he actually used like a sort of a pre-made engine and just used his own graphics.
Mm-hmm.
So like using like the RPG Maker, I believe it was.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. It inspired me to take a look at it, and yeah, it's a pretty cool program.
I remember too, like I was on GameSpot, and it popped up. This was like in 2010 or something like that, and I saw it on GameSpot. So I just messaged him, and I was like, I'd love to talk to you. And we did this really good phone interview for about a half hour. And then when I was putting the book together, and I wanted to do some indie games, I just reached out to him again, and I was like, listen, I want to ask you like another 20 questions to just fill out, you know, a lot of the stuff that we didn't get to the first time. And he was like, yeah, no problem. So in terms of putting the things together, it was just like, it was a byproduct of the games that I've played as a kid, the people that I've spoken to as a journalist over the years. So it was like Warren Spector, I interviewed for Epic Mickey 2 when I was at NBC. And he would like my stuff on Facebook from time to time, and on Twitter and on LinkedIn and stuff like that. And I reached out to him like, do you remember me? And he's like, yeah, I remember you. I'm like, good, because we're going to talk for Deus Ex. And he's like, okay, no problem. So, but then, I mean, some other people like Taichi Asuka, the guy that did The Fireman for Super Nintendo, I had seen somebody playing that game on a live stream on Instagram, and I was like, this game is fucking awesome. Oh my God. And I downloaded the ROM, and I was playing the ROM. I know some people are against emulators, but if I can't get my hands on it and I need to experience it, I'm going to download the ROM, and hopefully I could find a copy and I'll buy it, you know?
Yeah,
and,
there's nothing wrong with ROMs, man.
Well, especially if it never was released in the United States, right?
Yeah, it was never released in the United States, which is such a travesty, you know? I remember playing it, and I'm like, oh my God, this game is really freaking cool. I'm like, the fire is like the main character of this game, because these characters are so fucking cliche. Like the fire is the main character. So I find him on Facebook, and he's giving like mountain tours in Canada. He's not even in the video game industry anymore. So he gave me such an amazing story how he was a student at Human Entertainment, and he won like this contest to like get your idea made into a game. So it's like he was this young guy that ended up like making like, it's easily like one of the top like 25 games on the Famicom, the Super Famicom. And it's just like he did that, and he did like a couple of other games, and that was it. In and out of the industry. But a lot of people don't know the story. So it's like that was kind of like my inspiration to kind of show people what all of these guys had to go through in order to make their games. There's a couple of books that kind of touch on it. I forgot. I think one is called The Working Gamer, and but it's all like legends. It's all like Trip Hawkins and like all these like Warren Spector's featured in it, and David Crane is featured in it, and a couple of people that are featured in my book. But one of the things I wanted to channel in my book too is like, perfect example, like Kangao, the guy that did To the Moon, like if he was alive during like the Atari 2600 era, he would have been like the Howard Scott Warshaw of that era.
Yeah.
He would, you know, he would have been like that one-man band, crazy motherfucker making great games all by himself. The same thing about Matt Thorson, the guy that just did Celeste on the Switch and did Towerfall on the Ouya. Like these are guys that channel that fantastic like old school creativity that made the video game industry thrive in the late 70s and early 80s. So I wanted to kind of showcase like some of the great up and coming game developers of our time too. So
yeah, we just recorded an intro, and I was talking about just I am obsessed with Celeste right now.
We'll put it this way, like one of my, it's so funny because like I told you guys I teach, and whenever I have like a student that shows me that they have some potential, I always try and like take them under my wing. And I have this student right now that's like he's got a really sharp mind, and he's a very good writer. And I got him reviewing some, like, basically whenever I get like a shitty game that I don't want to review, I give it to him, because like if you're going to be a game critic, you're going to review games that you don't like, and I want to teach him like not to be snarky. I want him to write it as if it's art, like dissect it as if it's art, and not take like the easy way out and write like a shit review and stuff like that. And we were talking about Celeste, and he was like, "Oh, tell Matt that like Celeste is awesome." And I'm like, "I'll tell you this." I'm like, Matt almost didn't get into my book, and he's like, "Why?" And I was like, "Because he was so obsessed with finishing Celeste that it was almost impossible to like get a hold of him, because finishing this book, I had to not only do the interview, but I had to get all these guys to sign waivers for like legality reasons and stuff like that. And if they didn't sign the waiver, they wouldn't have been able to get in the book. So like I literally messaged Matt Dorson on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Steam, like as many different places as possible. I'm like, Matt, you gave me great answers. The chapter's written. I sent it to you. You love it. Please just give me the waiver, you know? And he did like 3 weeks before the book was supposed to go out. But it was like, that's the thing too. A lot of people don't see that this guy locked himself in his house basically for 6 months, like to polish this game. And it shows. I mean, Celeste is so perfect, you know, for what it is, you know? So,
well, even Michael and I, mainly Michael, he actually hosted Towerfall Fridays, where we would all go over to his place, and we would all just play Towerfall the whole night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love Towerfall.
On the Ouya?
No, not on the Ouya.
On the PS4.
Yeah, PS4.
Oh,
I don't think anyone bought an Ouya.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Like, that was such a missed opportunity, because like that game was good enough to launch a console.
Oh yeah.
But the Ouya just, and that's the thing too. That's another thing that's mentioned in the book, like the failure that is the Ouya, the failure that is the Project Nemo. Are you guys familiar with the Project Nemo?
No.
Oh my God, it was a VHS based system that all of these motion video games like Night Trap, Sewer Shark, all of those games were originally supposed to come out on in 1985.
Wow.
So what happened was they had legends like Rob Phillip, who programmed Missile Command on the Atari 2600. David Crane, you guys know who David Crane is, obviously, and even Mark Turmel was on the set of Night Trap. Like, they had all of these great guys working on these games, and what happened was, back in the day, there was no Amazon, so Hasbro made the Project Nemo, and they approached Toys R Us, and they're like, how much could we get for something like this? And Toys R Us is like, listen, if you guys sell this for $350, you guys will be millionaires. Everyone's going to buy this. And they were like, yeah, well, we can't sell it for like anything less than $550. And they're like, no one's going to buy it, and we're not going to carry it. So the Project Nemo died. It was never released. And those games basically sat like by themselves collecting dust for 5 or 6 years. And then the Sega CD comes out, and the Sega CD starts publishing all of these games: Night Trap, Sewer Shark, Ground Zero Texas, and everyone's playing them like, these games fucking suck.
So they were all supposed to be on VHS on that system?
6 years before they were released. So think of it this way.
Shit.
Think of it this way. Like, when did Super Mario Brothers come out on the NES? 1985.
Yeah.
If Night Trap comes out the same year as Mario Brothers, Night Trap blows Mario out of the water. This is a movie that you can control with hot chicks bouncing around.
I was obsessed. Well, I know you maybe you didn't like it, but man,
I love Night Trap.
Ground Zero Texas and Sewer Shark and Time Gal and all those like time-based games, man, I was obsessed with them.
Yeah, me too. I thought they were really unique. They were really different. And that's the thing. That's probably one of my favorite chapters in the book, the Night Trap one, because I get James Riley, who was the creator. I get David Crane, Rob Phillip. Rob Phillip did that game, and that game played a huge role in the ESRB rating system too. So like I listened to like all like 16, I think it's 12 or 16 hours of Senate grand jury testimony when they were talking about how those games were all terrible and that like kids shouldn't play them. Like Joseph Lieberman, that turd box, said that like any parent that got like Night Trap for their kids wasn't a responsible parent, you know? So it was like games like Night Trap, Lethal Enforcers, Doom, Mortal Kombat, all those games made it out okay except for Night Trap. Night Trap just got like caught the brunt of everyone's like piss and vinegar. Like Rob Phillip's girlfriend left him because of that game.
Wow.
That game caused such a stir that his girlfriend was like, you know what? Yeah, I can't be with somebody that made something like this. And then, and this is the guy that like programmed Missile Command on the 2600, which is arguably like one of the best games on the 2600. Like Missile Command is fucking great. So what he said was he was like he didn't want to be remembered for Night Trap, so then he goes out and he makes Cats and Dogs, which for those games sold 40 million combined copies, and like we wouldn't have Nintendogs without them, So this is the guy that's known for one of the most controversial games of all time and arguably like one of the most adorable games of all time. So it gives you like a really like inside view into how these people wanted to be remembered for the art that they created. And that's the thing too, like writing this book, so many people in academic spheres that like, that I cohabitate with are like, why would you write a book about video games? Like, why? I don't understand. And I'm just like, guys, like this is art. Like the video game industry now is the catalyst for so many different forms of art. It's so huge. It's bigger than movies. It's bigger than comics. It's bigger than all of these things now. And it's like for us to not pay attention to like the history of it now, why would you just write off the video game industry as kid stuff?
Yep.
You can't.
Yeah.
Completely agree.
Yep.
It's a beautiful art form.
To me it's the art form, because it's like, you know what, I could watch Scarface like every day, twice on Tuesday. I could watch The Nightmare Before Christmas like every day. I love that movie. I know the words to all the songs and shit like that. But a video game, I can control the movie. I can do whatever the hell I want. I can do it when I want. I can do it how I want. And considering how games are far less linear than they used to be now, like I don't have to play it the same way every time, so it's like it gives you so much more freedom. Smart people like film, but really smart people love video games.
I was just talking to one of my good friends about like why I like the idea of even working in video games. Not that I do, but why I would love to. Mm-hmm. Just because unlike an animated movie that we work on or a feature film, video games like request your attention. You have to listen to every line because you don't know what information is crucial for you to continue moving. So everything you tell like soaks in. If you're telling a story, it completely is absorbed. And it's the only like art form left where you can guarantee you got the audience's attention away from their phones, away from whatever's distracting them. It's pretty awesome.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And I'm happy that you said phones too, because a lot of this shit that people play on their phones isn't fucking video games. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, it's not. I mean, like, if you think
Candy
about it,
Crush, seriously. No. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I own a team in WWE Supercard. Like I'm the fucking man in WWE Supercard. But it's not a game. It's just tapping my thumb. There's no skill in it. It's just a grinding microtransaction shitfest. And that's the thing too. There's a couple of iPhone games, iOS like mobile games in the book. Like Mushroom 11 now is a mobile game, but like Squids is a mobile game, and it's probably like the most complete iPhone game you could ever play. Like it's a fully fleshed out RPG with a story, with a great score and stuff. And the bottom line, the thing that sucks so bad is like for 2 weeks it outsold like the Angry Birds in France, where like the developers are from, and then it just like kind of disappeared. And like the creator, who also just he created not just like last year Fury, it just got released on the Switch.
Oh,
That's such a good game too. It reminds me of like the old Mega Man games. It's just boss battles. It's a really cool game. And he said, we just broke even with Squids, and I would never even make a sequel because people that play iPhone games just don't get that like we can give them so much more than what they're getting now. So, and that's one of the stories that's in the book too. It's just so sad that these guys made such an awesome game on the iPhone, and people just in the end really didn't appreciate it for how beautiful it was.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a testament to like the idea of microtransactions, where like people now like freak out if a game has a price tag on the front end. And but honestly, it's like I would much prefer to pay up front than play a game. Like, for instance, I saw something online this week, in fact, and it was Namco's Pac-Man on the iPhone, and I was very skeptic. But they had this deal going on where it's like if you play the Sonic map, they cross-platform like Sonic into it, and they said if you play the Sonic map between now and then, you get to keep it forever. So I start playing the game, and I realize like I'm sitting there and I'm swiping, and the swipe controls are surprisingly pretty good considering it's a Pac-Man game. I mean, I much prefer a joystick. Then suddenly I'm playing, and then it stops. The whole game stops, and then a window comes up says, "Be sure not to get eaten by ghosts." I'm like, are you shitting me? Like right now? Like it's Pac-Man. And then I got to the Sonic thing. It was pretty cool. And then they're like, you need to buy more gems or some shit. And I just don't like. I understand why it exists now because of the market that we're in.
Oh yeah.
But it's just, I don't know. I just don't like it.
I agree. It's like it's so against like what makes this industry so special. It's like what they did with the last Star Wars game. You're telling me like I have to play the game for like 5,000 hours to get Darth Vader? Like, pardon my French, but suck my balls, man. I ain't doing that. I'm not doing that. You know?
Yeah.
So
no, I don't blame you.
And now it's like I have two nephews. One's 9 and one's 15, and it's like I destroy them like on a daily basis, like in pretty much every game that we play. And but it's just like I'm like, what are you playing? Because like they come over and like we play like Towerfall, we play NHL and Smash Brothers and stuff like that. And I'm like, all right, what are you guys playing? And the 15-year-old is like, oh, I'm playing Grand Theft Auto. And I'm like, okay. And he pops it in and he loads up his character and stuff. And I'm like, how the fuck did you get like all this stuff? And then his mom's like, oh yeah, I give him money and blah blah blah. And then I start doing the math and I'm like, dude, you've pumped like $600 into this game. I'm like, you're a waste of life.
That's crazy.
Like, why would you pump that much money into this game? And then it's like if we play NHL, like I go to like his hockey ultimate team or whatever, and he pumps all this money into getting like the best team and stuff, and I'm like, just play the game.
Yep.
Just play the game. It's like that they don't want to do that anymore. And it's even like when we were kids, we had Game Genie and stuff like that, but not everybody had Game Genie, and not everybody used Action Replay. I had it, but I didn't use it. It's like I had it because, shit, I had the money, I'll buy it, but it's like I didn't use it. I didn't use it for every single game. Like if I was playing an RPG or like a Castlevania or a Mega Man, I did not use the Action Replay because that was like against like the rules. Like you play a Castlevania game through the entire way. You play a Mega Man game the entire way through. If you can't, then you're a bitch. Then you don't deserve to play.
Yep, Pete.
But it's like now.
I don't cheat, dude.
Yeah,
asshole.
Not in those games. It's like, oh man, I remember like playing Twisted Metal 2 and using like Action Replay. So like the first day I could just like unlock all the characters, but I still played through the game with all the characters because I wanted to see the endings, because the endings were the reason why you played Twisted Metal. So, but the kids, they don't do that anymore, and it's because it's like the same things that like are going on in the movie industry where all they want to do is make superhero movies. One day that shit's gonna run cold, and then they got to find a new way to make money. And when the microtransaction stuff runs out, people are gonna get pissed, and they're gonna have to start from scratch. It's gonna be a sad day,
Not to mention they won't, like years down the line, they won't have the luxury of popping the game in and playing it.
Yep.
And being like, hey, yeah, I remember this. Like, let me play through it. Yeah, a lot of games now, especially those microtransaction ones, if you change your phone once,
yep,
you have to go through a lot of shit to get it to come back.
You got it. It's like one of the best quotes from the book. Like it makes me cry every time I read it. Rob Fulop, the guy that co-developed Night Trap and the guy that programmed Missile Command for the 2600. He said the problem with the video game industry is that it's constantly obsoleting itself. That every couple of years, the games that you grew up on, the games that you played, they no longer work the exact way that they used to. Meaning, like, yeah, you can remaster a game, but you can't play it exactly the same way that you played it when you were a kid. Like, if we wanted to break out an Atari 2600 now, we could, but it would be a real pain in the ass,
Right. Yeah.
And it's like, if you're into movies and you want to watch The Wizard of Oz isn't going to change. If you're into books and you want to read The Catcher in the Rye Catcher in the Rye isn't going to change, you know, but video games are constantly like perfect example, the Night Trap remaster, the one that Screaming Villains did last year. It's great. It's a really good remaster, but it's not the same as the original, you know? So it's like, yeah, man, it's hard. It's hard. What you guys do is no joke, man. It's like, I have so much respect for people that work in the video game industry, you know, and it's just like, it's only like the past 6 months that I've had like my small little like cup of coffee in the industry, and like I see like what people in the indie realm do, and it's like it's all love, it's all passion, it's all blood, sweat, tears, and all these guys are like working full-time jobs and then coming home getting their ass kicked by their wives and then going into their man caves and finishing their work. I mean, the voice acting shit that I did, I was just talking about it on Facebook today, how many times I'd have to wait for my daughter to fall asleep before I could record my lines, and then teaching classes the whole day, having like a sore throat, and then just being like,
fuck it, I'm just going to talk like this and record the rest of the lines. It's just, it's fucking crazy what you guys do.
You know, so, and that's one of the things that I wanted to capture in the book. Like, just, that's the thing too. I try and tell my students all the time, I'll have like a student that'll come in and he'll have Jordans on, and you know, his hair slicked back, or his hair will be all wavy or whatever, and he thinks like he's the shit. And I'm like, dude, you want to know what the most attractive thing is? And he's like, what? I'm like, success. I'm like, I'm 6'4", I'm 350 pounds. I don't care, but I'm successful and I bust my ass. So you know what? I'm like, that's why my wife looks the way that she does, and that's why I have the life that I have, because I bust my ass and I know what I want. And people are like, oh shit, I never really got it like that. And it's like, yeah, because at the end of the day, it's like, again too, some of these games that are coming out now, they're so beautiful. They look great. But it's like a game like To the Moon. The story being told in To the Moon is so one of a kind. It's so special. That's why you remember it. You know? And I like to think that pretty much every game in here, in this list, has something that makes it really special, or something that makes it iconic or eccentric.
Yeah, so the minds behind the games, interviews with cult and classic video game developers. We didn't actually run down all the games, but just a few. It was like Mortal Kombat, ToeJam and Earl, Desert Strike, E.T., Towerfall.
I could run down the whole list if you want.
Yeah, do it.
All right, you ready? Let's do this.
All right, Mutant League Football, Max Payne, Bully, Wonder Boy in Monsterland, E.T. the Extraterrestrial, A Boy and His Blob, Fighting Force, Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego, The Suffering, Night Trap, ToeJam and Earl, Squids, To the Moon, Mushroom 11, Towerfall, The Incredible Hulk Ultimate Destruction, Spider-Man 2, Yar's Revenge, Road Rash, Desert Strike, Bart vs. Space Mutants, Gabriel Knight, Maniac Mansion, Voodoo Vince, Deus Ex, King's Bounty, Super Battle Tank, The Fireman, Pro Wrestling X, WWF WrestleMania the arcade game, Mortal Kombat, Doom, NHL PA 93, NHL Face Off, NBA Jam, and Wasteland.
And we should,
there's a lot.
Yeah, it is amazing. If you don't mind us saying, but like you allowed us to read some excerpts of the game, the book. It was really fantastic. Like,
you're gonna make me cry. Thank you. And like I told you, I gave you guys rough copy, so I'm sure there was some typos in there and stuff like that. So that's all my publisher would let me send you guys, because I haven't gotten my proofs yet. So I'm happy that you guys enjoyed it.
Man, I thoroughly enjoyed the write-up of A Boy and His Blob. I grew up playing that game, and man, just like and I'm not going to spoil anything, but like just the little stories and stuff that's in there, like that now I know to go back and look for and everything. It's like, it's really cool. It makes stuff like this. I really love dev stories, because, and that's how I stumbled upon you and your book. Was I love dev stories, so I'm always looking for it. And I looked on Amazon. You can pre-order this book on Amazon, by the way.
Yes, you can, and on Barnes and Noble, Target, and Walmart. Sorry.
Coming out March 1st.
Yeah, it's supposed to be out very, very soon. I would say the latest, the end of March, because I haven't gotten my proofs yet, and it's probably going to take me like a week or two just to read through the book one more time and make sure everything's up to snuff. So, but it's like it could be like any day now. So,
yeah. So it's really remarkable, and you know, the dev stories definitely bring a like a replayability to the game again. you know.
It does make me wish that I wish there was something like this for the animation industry too.
Yeah,
You
should be.
hear John Lasseter or Walt Disney, but outside of that, you start getting into like nobody knows any of these names, and people like look at Little Mermaid and in the main character like whatever Belle and who the fuck is the Frozen girl?
Elsa.
Elsa.
Anna and Elsa, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't really know the artist behind it that actually like the one person that made that the shot with I don't care about our the cold never bothered me anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was Chad Sellers that animated that shot, and I was like, man, that shot sold the whole movie right there. That was it. That was $1 billion shot.
Yeah.
I never liked that shot. But.
Really? I thought he pushed the appeal really well.
Chad Teller's a former Blue Sky animator.
Is he?
Actually, he was one of the guys that I trained in the chunk of animators that came in that time.
Nice.
Way back when.
Back in the day.
Yeah.
Didn't he play in the Turkey Bowl? I think he did.
What's that? Did he play what?
In the Turkey Bowl.
I don't know if he did or not.
I'm trying to remember if he took a nosedive. Anyways, don't do
You
that.
guys are making me think too, man. Like, there's so many great animated films out there, like those Lord of the Rings animated movies from like the 70s.
Oh hell yeah!
Like how the fuck? How did they put that together? You know?
Ralph Bashki.
Yeah.
But
Uh-huh.
yeah, it's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Go ahead. Nah, go ahead, Joe.
No. I just think there's just so many tells worth telling about in the industry. Like that was some of the stuff we were like talking about, like the origin stories of some of the animators we had on the podcast earlier, like Mike Walling. It's like the stories are absolutely insane. How somebody even gets into the industry, and then how they're making these games and the stories behind them, and even if the really small animated shorts get to be really amazing stories.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. I just want to say that I'm thoroughly jealous that you got to speak with David Crane. I have a boxed copy of Pitfall 2 that
So do I.
I would love to have that guy sign. He's just like, you know, Pitfall 2 was like monumental for me when I was a kid. Before then it was like, it was all like kind of one screen sort of thing. I played Pitfall, but at the time I didn't really get it. But Pitfall 2, it was like, you knew exactly what you had to do. You had to get that person that was on the same start screen as you, and you had to figure out a way of getting there. And the world was absolutely huge for an Atari 2600 game.
Oh, I completely agree. David Crane is like, I'm telling you, for me, it's like getting to talk to him was one of those very rare moments. And then like we sent so many emails back and forth to one another, and that's how I got Gary Kitchen for the book. And what happened was I sent him the chapter, The Boy and His Blob, when it was finished, and he gave me one of the nicest compliments that I've ever gotten in my entire career. And he's like, it's 100% factually correct. And I was like, I'm like, that's what I wanted. You know, he's like, it's 100% factually correct. And then I was like, all right, I'm like, so you know how we can make this even better, right? And he's like, how? I'm like, get me in contact with Gary, and I'll tell his side of the story, and we'll put them together, and then we'll make it like a fucking super chapter. And so then he gave me, he was so helpful. He gave me Gary Kitchen's email, and I emailed Gary Kitchen, and Gary Kitchen is another he's like one of my heroes. My dad used to play Super Battle Tank like every night, like, and he goes to me, oh yeah, I know who you are. David Crane was talking to me about you the other day. And I was like, oh, what? Like, holy shit, like David Crane was talking to you about me. And then what happened was I went to David. I'm like, you know, you worked on Night Trap also too, right? And he's like, yeah. He goes, you know, he's like, I didn't have nearly as big an impact on Night Trap as I have for the other games that you've spoken to me about. And he goes, how about this? He goes, I got you Gary Kitchen. He goes, how about you go out and you get Rob Fulop and you pitch Rob Fulop, and if he says yes, then I'll talk to you about Night Trap. And I'm like, that's a deal. So then I nagged the shit out of all of these guys.
Of course.
But then what happened was by the end of it though, because that was the thing too, like I think by the end of it they had a lot of trust in me because a lot of people, they'll interview somebody for a book or for an article and then you never speak to them ever again.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the article goes up, they send the link, oh here it is, and then you find out, wait, this isn't what I said, you know. So when I would finish a chapter, I would send it to them and I would be like, listen, I'm not asking you to edit like what I'm writing about you. I want you to just give me your thoughts on how factually correct it is, and are your quotes exactly like what you want to say. And I ended up getting answers back from some of these guys where it was just like, yeah, man, you nailed it. You did this, you did that. Howard Scott Warshaw, like the E.T. and Yar's Revenge chapters, like,
yeah,
we went through like 3 or 4 drafts. He's like, I love what you're saying and how you're saying it. He's like, I think we need to do another interview. And I'm like, okay. And I sent him some more questions and he gave me some more answers. And then I sent it back and he's like, yeah, man, now you got it. So that was like, but this was all over the span of like, I got 36 games, like 55 publishers. I wrote it in 7 months, you know? So it was like, yeah, it was nonstop balls to the wall because my whole hope was I was trying to finish the book before my daughter was born.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't. But you know, like my wife was great about it, you know, thank God. And I still I pounded out a book that probably would have taken somebody 2 or 3 times as long, you know. And I tried. I've always worked fast. That's always been like, if you guys were joking around before and you said that I'm like savant-esque with like remembering people's names and stuff, but it's more like I can read very quickly and I write very quickly too, which is one of the reasons why I was an editor at NBC for a time too. And I'd probably still be working there if I didn't leave. But I put my head down and I tried to bang this out as productively, and I did not waste a second for the 7-8 months that I was working on this book. And like being able to talk to David Crane, this is the thing too. The first 6 people that I spoke to, so like David Crane, Michael Menheim, who did Mutant League Football, he's a fucking genius and he's a great artist. I don't know if you guys have played the new Mutant Football League.
No, I backed it, but I haven't played it yet.
It's so good. It's so much fun. So like the 6 people that I told you guys that I got in the beginning, after I got those 6 people and they agreed, whenever I would send a pitch to somebody else and tell them that I got David Crane and I got Gary Kitchen and I got all these other people, they were like, well, if you got those guys, then yeah, I'll talk to you. So It was like everything just kind of like came into place. A lot of people didn't answer me. The only people that like kind of pissed me off, I probably shouldn't say this, but fuck it, I don't care. Like and you guys are probably like, ooh, it's getting juicy now.
Hot scoops.
Donna Bailey, she's one of the co-creators of Centipede. I wanted her in the book because she was one of the only women working in Atari during that time.
Yeah.
And she originally like kind of said yes, and she was like, yeah, we can talk, blah, blah, blah. And then she changed her mind. You know, I basically got a cease and desist from the people from Tetris. They were like, no, we have a movie coming out. Do not even mention our game in your book. And I'm like, well, put 4 lines together and go fuck yourself. Like, you know, like, oh my God, like that's crazy. Like don't even mention your game in my book. Like that's kind of crazy.
That game is a toiled past, man. Like,
oh yeah.
I haven't seen it yet, but the gaming historian on YouTube just did an entire like video of it.
Yep.
You gotta sit down and watch it.
I did check that out. That was that was definitely a story. That insane.
So it's kind of funny, like in its own way. I did mention Tetris, because you don't ever tell me not to do something. That's the type of person I am. But one of the co-creators of Road Rash was one of the I think he programmed Tetris on the NES.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So Dan Geisler. So it's kind of funny. So Tetris is mentioned like in one sentence in the book.
Speaking of Road Rash, not to just completely derail this, but I started playing this game called Road Redemption on the PC.
Yeah, it's
Holy
mentioned in the
shit.
book. Yeah.
So good.
Dude, I watched your Twitch stream of that. I was laughing my ass off. That game looks fun.
So much fun. You got to get a PC, Jeff.
I know. I need one.
Yeah,
Anyway,
that's a sad story too, because it's like Road Rash. Every edition sold well.
Mm-hmm.
It made EA money every time it was released.
Yeah,
but
I played the hell out of those games, man.
Mm-hmm, me too. But EA went on, and it's what happened with Mutant League Football too. That EA went on this whole, you know what? We're just gonna focus on like real shit. So like we'd rather put out like a shitty NASCAR game every year, and we'd rather put out Madden every year than do another Mutant League Football or another Mutant League Hockey. You know?
Wasn't Desert Strike EA as well?
Desert Strike was EA too, and Desert Strike almost got canceled like 2 or 3 times during the dev cycle.
And I love that game too.
They fought for that game, and that's the thing too. That's the thing that we haven't touched on too. Road Rash, according to Geisler, was almost canceled 2 or 3 times before it was released. It had its first showing like at a con, at a gaming expo. People were like, "This game sucks," and it almost got canned before it was even released. Desert Strike, they thought like the title of the book was about people like trying to quit their jobs in the middle of the desert. Like they didn't know what the title of the name was. Title of the game was. They didn't agree with it. CNN said that it was about like Desert Storm, which it had nothing to do with. Yeah. So that's one of the things too in the book. We talk about how the media that's the thing too. And this is coming from a guy that used to work at NBC. The mainstream news knows, and pardon my French, they know dick about video games. Oh, yeah. It's like I remember when Sandy Hook happened, and I probably shouldn't be telling you guys this story either, but whatever. They had that Sandy Hook shooting, and that was an awful day. Like I remember working at NBC, and that was just an awful day. And we sent somebody out to go over there to knock on people's doors and to start getting some information for stories. But what happened was, I'm not sure if you guys remember, but the shooter had his brother's ID on him when he picked him up. Yep. And so we got the name, and obviously from NBC we got the name first. And I'll never forget, the arts and entertainment editor was like, "Oh," he went on the kid's Facebook page, and there was like a not a Bioshock. Fuck, what's the? It's like the space opera, Mass Effect.
Oh yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, this kid like Mass Effect. Pat, you're the video game guy. Like, write a story how like Mass Effect like played a role in this." And I'm like, "Dude, Mass Effect." Yeah, I'm like, Mass Effect did not play a role in this kid going to a school and shooting it up. Mass Effect, absolutely not. I'm like, I'm not writing the story. And he goes, "Are you sure? Like this game, like I am positive that Mass Effect is not the reason why. There's no story here. I'm not writing it." And then like 20 minutes later, that you find out that it wasn't that kid, that it was his older brother and stuff like that. But the guy felt like an asshole. But that's the thing. The average mainstream media, they know nothing about video games. They have no idea on like how it affects people. I remember when I was going to graduate school, Fallout New Vegas just came out, and I remember like that game got me through graduate school. Being able to like go to the wasteland and just like kick total amounts of ass like every night. And like Fallout 3 came out the first year I started teaching. So it was like you're dealing with kids for the first time, and you don't know how to speak to them and stuff, and you're just trying to be professional, and you feel like you're getting stepped all over and stuff. And you go home and you jump into like another world and you experience it, and it's like what you guys were saying before. You just that fluidity of being able to live in something else and create it. It's a wonderful experience. And like, sure, people get addicted to video games, and sometimes they may influence lesser souls, to say it nicely, but for the most part it's just like it just opens up parts of your existence and parts of your brain and makes you feel in ways that you've never felt before. Like I will never forget the time that Sephiroth killed Aerith in Final Fantasy VII. Like I will remember that for the rest of my life.
Man, I was waiting for the remaster to play it for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Shut up.
So,
but I, not to get political, but you nailed it right on the head. Like Donald Trump said today that he blames video game violence for this.
Yeah, please.
And, it's like, okay, so what's the difference between blaming video games and blaming guns? Like, I don't see that as being a counter argument. And
It's like
so-
Battlestar Galactica. Like history just repeats itself over and over. So in the early 90s, you had the same thing. Oh, it's video games' fault. It's video games' fault. And now 25 years later, you got this comb over saying the same exact thing. You know,
Yeah.
it's so sad. It's so sad.
Me and Jeff compiled a bunch of questions for you.
Let's
we
do
want to make sure we get through them. A lot of them you already answered, actually.
Oh.
Yeah,
Okay,
I don't even know if there's anything left, man.
You're a pro interviewee.
Yeah.
That's the
like
thing, too.
seriously.
Well, you've
Before-
probably done like 40, 50 of these already, so you're like,
Yeah.
yeah, I know what they're going to ask. All right, how did I think about this book? All right, yeah, this is how I got into the industry, blah, blah, blah.
I've given
Yes.
you guys more stuff though, to be honest. Like I haven't told that NBC story. I never told anybody before. Like on like for posterity. Like people are gonna message me when this comes out and they go, "What the fuck did you say that for, man?" Like, yo, it happened, man. Like, don't hate me. Don't hate on me.
You know,
But,
one thing I was curious about is
Yeah.
when I first got into the animation industry, I was immediately taken aback about how similar all animators are. They all seem to slightly trend to the same personality or the same history or backstory of like their relationships with their family or whatever. It's certainly, you start to notice a trend. I was wondering in all the people you interviewed, if you started to stumble upon a similar theme of who these people are and what they're like.
That's such a tough question. That's good though. I think there's like 2 or 3 types. I think there's definitely like a lot of them. A lot of the older ones are the eccentric, single type.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have the other ones that I feel like are similar to me, that are the ones that love what they do, but also acknowledge the fact that like they need somebody to share it with.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have people that kind of were just like in the industry for a little while, made a small mark and decided that it wasn't for them. But for the most part, I would think it's either the first or the second. So you have these people that are very, very unique and very smart and very eccentric, and they're all about like their art. So it's like, I think right now Matt Thorson definitely falls into that category. The guy that did Celeste and Towerfall, like,
Yeah.
I could definitely see him getting married and having a family and stuff like that. But right now, he's the type of guy that could totally lock himself away and just craft like a masterpiece, you know? And Mark Turmel, who did NBA Jam, of course, and WWF WrestleMania, the arcade game, he like falls into the second. Like, if you go on his Facebook, his family is fucking beautiful. Like, I'm telling you, like, he has like he had a professional photographer come in probably like 30 different times, and there's just all these beautiful pictures of his children and stuff like that, and you could tell that like this guy really cares about like his family.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he's fucking Mark Turmel, like he's a god, you know. So yeah, you know. Howard Scott Warshaw is a guy that I would say like kind of falls into the third category. Like he wasn't in the video game industry super long, like as a developer. Like he worked for a couple of other companies after Atari and stuff. But he's a psychiatrist now.
Man, that guy is a genius, and
But yes,
he gets a bad rap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
like
I think everybody's kind of jumped on this whole like ET sucks thing
that's
bandwagon.
the thing too.
But
That's one of
there's
the things I
far
wanted
worse
to-
games that are out there.
You bet, man. That's like one of the things I wanted to discuss in the book. Like, so like in the book, I think it's the 5th chapter, and the title of the chapter is "The Best Game Ever Created in 5 Weeks." You know, just because, you know. But like the thing is, we became friends on Facebook after the interview, and I'll never forget doing the interview because my wife was pregnant and she was sleeping, and I was in the kitchen like down the hall because I didn't want to wake her up, and the time difference in California and stuff. So I'm doing the interview at like 11:30 at night, and I could have stayed on the phone with him all night. Like, he's so smart, and he's like, he doesn't give a shit because he doesn't have to. Like, when you say that somebody doesn't give a shit, it's almost like a negative thing. But it's like this guy is so confident in the words that come out of his mouth that he understands himself in a way that most people never will. And when he says something, it comes across so sage, you know? So he's definitely like somebody that falls into the third category where he's just like mega smart and like whatever he does, he's good at, you know? And video games were just like I don't want to say a small part of his existence because that's what he'll be remembered for by most people. But I mean, I'm sure if you talk to any of his patients and stuff, I guarantee you he's an amazing psychiatrist.
I was going to say Yar's Revenge is just a fucking institution in my opinion.
It was on The Walking Dead, of course. Like, it's fucking great. You know, it's such a great game. So.
Go ahead, Jeff.
I was just saying his part in, what was it, Atari Game Over? He was featured in that.
Oh, yeah.
Man, that his story and him like witnessing all those games being dug up, man, I felt like just like pain in my heart for him. It's like,
I agree. And see, this is the thing too. Like, there's so many. And this is the thing too. Whenever I would do an interview with somebody, one of the things I would say is like, okay, this is on Wikipedia about your game, so we know it's bullshit. So address it. You know. So one of the questions that I asked Howard Scott Warshaw is like, you know, how do you feel that like the fall of the Atari like falls on you, you know? And he was like, listen, he's like, I've kind of come to grips with it. Like, I'm okay with it. And he goes, but, you know, there was a series of other mistakes that led to Atari's fall. But mine was, like, the last, like, mistake. And the thing was, of course, I did my research before the interview. And I knew that, like, Atari made, like, 20 really shitty arcade ports that didn't sell well, that pissed people off, like Pac-Man and stuff like that.
I was going to say, shouldn't Pac-Man take the fall for the Atari?
Yeah, a lot of those shitty arcade games that people were like, you know what? I could just go to the arcade, spend $1. I don't need to spend 50 or 60 on this piece of shit. You know, that's what killed the Atari.
And the saturation. There's too many choices. Sound familiar? Familiar?
Yep.
Hey man, I wish I had the choice over that. Like,
but okay, so I got a question for you, dude.
Sure.
So, what would you consider to be your top 3 favorite retro games?
Oof.
And that's before PS2 era.
Okay. Wow. I hate you. That's a hard question. NHL PA 93 / NHL 94.
Yeah, that's such a good game.
I love that whole series, but like the first 3 games were so special for like a variety of reasons, and that's probably like one of my favorite chapters.
I have a question then about that. I used to play those games religiously, but I only was able to break the glass behind the goalie once, and I feel like, was that only in 94?
No, that was in 93.
I cannot do it in 93. I have the game. I've only done it once. Why?
Doug Wilson does it all the time.
Is that how you do it?
on the Sharks. Doug Wilson has an Ally Afraidy. There's a couple of guys that have like that 99 shot power that do it.
All right.
I remember the first time I played 94 from the previous year. And the moment I figured out that you can like repeatedly tap I forget which button it was. I think it was the C, and you can like slam into somebody. I was like, this is it. Yep. This is it.
Yep.
So much goddamn fun.
You almost wanted to lose the game so you could just beat the crap out of the winning team when they're celebrating.
Yeah.
And just the sound it would make.
And there's no fighting in NHL 94, and there's a reason for that, which I discussed in the book. But the thing was, the NHL Players Association only agreed to give them the license if there was only a certain amount of fights in the game. So it had to be like the NHL average. So they had to get as close to the NHL average in fights for the NHLPA to give them the license. But Michael Brook is such a mad genius that he realized that the people testing the game for the NHL wouldn't play the game the same way that we would play the game. So if the whistle blows and you're playing your friend, do you still hit him after the whistle? Yeah. So you hit him. Can you get in a fight after the whistle? Yeah. But the people that were testing the game for the NHL weren't playing the game like that.
That's funny.
Yeah. So to get back to the question, you guys are gonna hate me. So the NHLPA 93, NHL 94, those still that counts as one game to me. I'm just making up the rules as I go along.
All right.
Pokemon, the first Pokemon was fucking magic.
Was that the
Red,
gold?
red, blue, green.
Yeah.
Holy
Okay.
shit! My timer on my game broke at 999 hours and 59 minutes. Like
Wow.
Damn.
I played the shit out of that game because the thing was I was so good at it. You know, like I used to have kids come from all over the neighborhood, and it's like I used to just tear them the fuck up, man. Like I had the entire Pokédex, and then like every max evolution Pokemon I would raise to the highest level, and I would learn all their moves and stuff. Like I invested so much time in that game. Let's see. And then one more that would be it's so hard.
Yeah, I
would
was
probably
gonna say
Pitfall.
Pitfall, the first one.
The first Pitfall, just because it's
Pitfall.
like, oh, that game for me, playing that game, it's just like so many games rip off Pitfall.
Yeah.
So many adventure games rip off Pitfall, and for what it was able to do, you nailed it before. For what it was able to do on an Atari 2600 cart is ridiculous. Just like the swinging, I'm like,
Yeah.
like they did so many cool things. I'll throw a couple more out there, like Chrono Trigger. I think is such an amazing game.
Yeah, that's such a good game.
The original RBI Baseball on the Nintendo, just because it had the real players. Like in 1986, it was insane. I remember I was 3 years old when that game came out, and I used to play it all the time. And I would like remember like stats and shit like that. Like my dad used to use me as like a bar like trick. Like my dad's friends would come over the house, and my dad would be like, PJ, because that's my nickname, because I'm Patrick Jr. Like, PJ, come here. And he'd go to my dad's friends, he'd go, what's Kevin McReynolds' batting average? What runners in scoring position? I'd be like 349, and his friends would be like, your kid's fucking sick. Like, he's 4 years old. How the fuck does he know this, you know? And it's because when I was a little kid, like 2-3 years old, my dad would buy baseball cards, and I was just memorizing, like, the numbers in the back, and then, like, I remember watching Mets games as a little kid, and I would listen to like Gary Thorne and Ralph Kiner talking about stats and shit, and I would just be able to memorize it. But like it all started with RBI Baseball.
Yeah, RBI. If you want to play a modern game that really lends itself to that, is Super Mega Baseball.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's like super fun.
Ice hockey is so much fun on the NES.
Yeah,
That's a great game. And then you led me to Super Blood Hockey. I'm waiting on the answers from that developer. So like I saw the video of that game, and I was just like, holy shit, that's great. I want that game on the Switch. The Switch needs
that game.
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
that other hockey game was supposed to come out for it. What's it called?
Oh, I know what you're talking about. The one that was like old school or whatever.
Yeah, I interviewed those guys. They were nice, and like they did their research and stuff, but like it's not that sexy a sim. You know, it's just like there's something
Yeah.
missing. There's something missing there. But like RBI Baseball, Earthbound,
Mm-hmm.
Final Fantasy VII, the original Resident Evil. I still like shit myself when those dogs jump through the window the first time. Maniac Mansion. So it's like that's the thing. I was lucky when I was a kid because like my dad was a big kid. My dad was 22 and he had twin boys, so he was still a kid himself. You know. So when I was 12, 13 years old, going through freaking puberty playing video games all the time. My dad was only in his 30s, and he was like, yeah, fuck it, I'll play video games with you, you know? So I was really lucky as a kid.
I play games with my kids every chance I get.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So, yeah, those are a few. I'm sorry I gave you more than 3.
I want to say congratulations on the release today of the Padre.
Oh, thank you.
I know you had a part in that and doing the voice acting. And did you do writing for that as well?
Well, see, what happened was it's an interesting story because the same way like I kind of got introduced to Super Blood Hockey was the same way that I got introduced to the Padre. I saw it on somebody's social media feed, and I saw this priest, this voxelized priest, like walking through like a forest, and he got like bitch slapped by a tree, like like the tree from like the Wizard of Oz, like it was alive and shit. And I'm like, this looks really cool. So, I mean, I have bowls the size of like watermelons. I don't care. I'll talk to anybody. I don't care what type of publisher they're from and stuff like that. I talk to them like they're an equal, and I like to pick people's brains and stuff like that. And I messaged these guys and I was like, you want to do an interview? And they responded right away. They're like, yeah, let's do an interview. And we did a nice little we did a Q&A via email because their English wasn't that good. And then they asked me if I wanted to play the game. And I started playing the game, and it just reminded me so much of the original Alone in the Dark, which I think is such an amazing game. Yeah. And the only thing that I noticed was like the dialogue, you could tell, wasn't written by somebody that spoke English. Mm-hmm. And I felt like it could hurt the game, like if somebody that didn't like have an appreciation for like that Lovecraftian Edgar Allan Poe style that they were going for, didn't refine it. So I'm like, you know what? I told my wife, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to ask them if they want me to. I'll edit all the dialogue in the game for them. So I messaged the guys, and I was like, and they were happy because I was literally the first person to ever interview them about the game, and I was like, I'd love to edit the dialogue, and we talked about it, and we came up with a price, and they're like, all right, you're on payroll, so
nice.
Boom. And then what happened was a month goes by, and now I'm just happy for a plethora of reasons. Like I got a hot wife, I got a good job, I got a baby that I love, I got a dog that doesn't shit and piss in the house. Like life is good, you know. And now I'm story editing. I'm editing the story for this game, so they're sending me like bits and pieces of the dialogue, and I'm editing it and sending it back to them. It was fun. It was a fun thing. And then they go to me, they're like, "Oh, the voice actor left," and I'm like, "Oh, that sucks." And they're like, "Yeah, we need somebody that could do like an English accent." And I was like, "Well, to be honest, I'm like, the guy that does the voice now sounds like a little too, like he's too happy. Like this is supposed to be like a dark game." And I was like, "You need somebody with like a darker voice." And they're like, "Well, can you do it?" And I'm like, "Yeah." So I'll never forget it. Like I already had the dialogue, and they were like, "You have the line." So they're like, record them and send them back to us. So I have a Zoom recorder that I use to record all of my interviews and stuff. And I went in my man cave, and I just recorded all of the lines, and I sent it to them. And they were like, "Yeah, man, you got it. This is you. You're the Padre." And I'm like, "Oh my God," you know. And it just started off with, I told you guys before we started recording, that I can do like that kind of movie trailer voice, and it's basically an ode to Don LaFontaine, who's like that classic movie guy. Like,
in a world, one man in the city, starring Ray Liotta and Al Pacino. Goodfellas, a bunch of Italians kill people. It's fucking hilarious.
You know, it's like that that voice. And I just wondered like if I could keep that like that dark like gruffness but add an English accent. And I did.
So then it went from this to we went to this to that, and now it's like this dark British voice, the Padre. And I just started speaking like this. I would walk my dog, and I would just yell at the dog, and I would order food from Dunkin' Donuts, and I just kept talking in this voice all the time.
And I just got really comfortable doing it, and we added more lines and more lines, and now I'm like, holy shit, like I'm like legit like a voice actor. So then what happened was I've done testing on a bunch of games before. One of the games featured in the book Pro Wrestling X, I'm a beta alpha tester and stuff for them, and I've helped animate a couple of the moves that are in the game. Like I've helped design a couple of the moves in the game and stuff. And he was like, "Dude, I heard the Padre stuff like in the trailer." He's like, "You did the narration for the trailer?" I'm like, "You bet your ass I did." And he's like, "Dude, we're gonna do like a story mode for this game." He's like, "That's something like we'd really like for you to like work on a different type of voice." So like, I'm working on something for them. I don't want to do it now, but because it's totally different, and I want people to be surprised. But cool. So it's like that, and then I had a publicist that I've worked with for a while. She's like, oh, that she wanted to get into representing people in the video game industry, and she was like, I'd love to like represent you. And now she's pitching me to like other developers and stuff. And it's like I always did voices when I was a kid, and I always wanted to do this. I've interviewed so many great voice actors, like the woman that does Jibanyan for Yokai Watch, and Dana Snyder, the guy that does Master Shake from Aqua Teen Hunger Force. And he's a great guy. He's a fucking comedic genius. He's awesome. The guy that does the voice for Steven Universe, like I've interviewed all these people, and I've kind of like picked their brains about this. So it's like before I even got into voice acting, I knew that like this was something that like I thought that I could do. I just never had like that break, you know? And I never wanted to, after a while I felt like I was just like destined to just be a writer and just be a video game journalist. And I was happy with that because I love that, but I always thought that I could do more. So just me sticking my nose where it doesn't belong got me the story editing spot, and then it got me the voice acting thing. And I just want to say too, like, the guys that are doing the Padre, it's a tiny team of like 6 or 7 guys, and the game's in early access release now. And like I was almost crying today because people are writing reviews on Steam and they're like, this is so much more than an early access. And I'm like, yeah, because these guys fucking love old school survival horror games. Somebody was streaming the game today, and I was on their stream and I was breaking their balls. I'm like, nope, you're doing the wrong thing. You're doing the wrong thing. And they were getting a kick out of it, and I was like, this is the way that it used to be. Like, you can't cheat in this game. This is the type of game where you'll get stuck at a puzzle, and you're gonna have to wait until you're not frustrated, until you're thinking clearly, or until one of your friends has beaten it and you can ask them, the way that it used to be when you were a kid. You go to the cafeteria, like, yo, anyone beat like World 6 and Mario World? Like, how the fuck do you do that? You know? So it's like the Padre is the same way. Today, on one of the discussion threads on the Padre, somebody goes, oh, can there be an option to just skip this puzzle? And it's like a major puzzle in the game. And I'm saying to myself, you fucking millennial. Like, that's not the way you play video games. If you can't beat the puzzle, then don't fucking play the game. Or, you know what, grind it out. And then, like, later the guy wrote, oh, it took me a half hour to beat it. And I'm like saying to myself, oh, you hear that? You hear that? It's the world's smallest violin playing a song. Like, that's what happens when you play games. Sometimes you get stuck, you know? So these guys put so much tender love and care into all the puzzles, the narrative. And that's the thing, too. Like, I just wrote a book. I've been in the video game industry, like, in terms of writing, like, criticism and stuff like that. So it's like, if I'm involved in, like, a shitty game, that's not good for me. That's not saying very much about myself, you know? So it's like, I wanted to make sure that, like, if I ever got involved in a game, that it was, like, a really good one, and that, like, these guys stood for something and that they had ethics. And these guys are great. Like, the people at Shotgun with Glitters really care about bringing back like the old school survival horror type gameplay. It's like if you can combine like the combat style of like the first Diablo, like, you know, hovering over the guy and tapping him to kill him and stuff like that, and then like that isometric camera from the original Resident Evil, and then like the narrative of Alone in the Dark. That's what the Padre would be, with like Minecraft-esque visuals. So it's it's so much fun, and just to be a part of it is great.
As of this
right up my alley.
Or as of this recording, it's on sale for, I think, $10.
Yep, 1,000 cents, and you can have it.
Yep, I'm gonna pick it up myself and try it out and see how I'm not a big survival guy, but I want to try it out because I like older games. So
that's the thing. It's like totally an ode to the older style of games. And hold on one second, Pete. 1 second. I just saved you $10 by switching to Geico. So when you get it,
oh sweet, you sent me the code.
Yeah, I only had one left. So I'll see if I can get some for you guys too, just so you could
just
try
Michael.
it. I would love.
I can't play it.
Oh, okay.
He doesn't have a PC.
And he's a little bitch with scary games.
Well, it's for Mac too. I play it on my Mac.
Oh, how about that?
My last question for you, Patrick, is you mentioned that you're going to keep writing,
Mm-hmm.
and you mentioned that you are it looks promising to do some more voice acting. Are you going to? Is there anything you can talk about as far as project based stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm definitely interested in doing a sequel to this book, and I've interviewed basically 6 people from the Loaded team already, and I have a really I would love to include it in this book. And my friends have joked around with me. They're like, "Oh, dude, you should release just the one chapter and call it a DLC. That would be fucking sick." Blah blah blah, But I would love.
Cool.
It would be. I don't know, but we'll see what happens. But I definitely want to write a sequel. I've been writing a book on professional wrestling for the last 3 months. It's kind of similar to this book in the fact that it dispels a lot of the rumors and the perceptions of what it takes to be a professional wrestler. So it's a lot of the emotional and physical craziness that these guys have to go through, with their bodies, with their minds, and it's a lot. I've interviewed a lot of indie guys and stuff, so that's my next book that I plan on finishing.
That's cool, because I like the behind the scenes stuff of wrestling. I saw an interview of fairly recently of Jake the Snake Roberts.
Yeah.
And that guy is a broken man.
Yeah.
It is sad.
So the thing is too, if you watch the documentary with Diamond Dallas Page, where he kind of brings Jake the Snake back to life. He totally cleaned him up and stuff like that. He's a much different. If you watch the WWE documentary from 15 years ago, you would think that he's dead in a sewer somewhere. And then if you watch the Diamond Dallas Page documentary on Jake the Snake and Scott Hall, he totally brings these guys back to life. And
I'll have to check that out.
It's great. And so that's what the next book is basically. I've been I'm out of my mind. I don't even know how I'm married sometimes. My wife is amazing. After I finished this book, I told her that I wanted to do a wrestling book, and I have a buddy that I used to go to high school with that runs a wrestling promotion, and he was like, "Yeah, you can come by." So it's over the past 3 months, I've interviewed about 40 indie and professional wrestlers, and I've helped put wrestling rings together. I've helped behind the scenes. I've helped them. This wrestling promotion is Battle Club Pro. They're based in the Bronx, in New York. I've helped them book talent and stuff. So it's I've gotten a really cool look at the wrestling industry. So that's going to be the basis for the next book, and I hope to finish that book by the end of this year, and then I think that'll give me enough time. That'll give people enough time to really jump into the things that I'm trying to present in this book, because I would love to do another version of this book every 2 or 3 years.
That'd be awesome.
I think there's so many games out there. So it's my whole goal is I'm 34 now. I'd like to have 4 books out by the time that I'm 40, and I want to write the wrestling book. I want to write a hockey book eventually at one point in my life. But the rest of it, if I do 10 editions of this book, I would be more than happy. That would be the bee's knees. So so that's as far as the book stuff goes. As far as writing, I write 2-3 articles a day for reviewfix.com. That's my site. I own it. I have 10-15 people writing for it every day. It's some people have custom cars that they go home to every day, but I have a site. So it's I have a site that I play with every day, and I'm always doing interviews with indie developers and musicians and actors and playwrights and stuff. I'm interested in people's creative processes. That's one of the things that I love. So there's that, and then the voice acting. I just launched about a week ago my official site. My agent put it together for me. It's patrickhickeyjr.com, and we're working on getting some of my other vocal stylings up there. I could do a ton of voices. I could do Jigglypuff from Pokemon. I could do a ton of voices. So it's and if somebody goes to me, "Oh, we want you to do this," if I work on it long enough, I can get it eventually, So it's I'm really excited about what could happen. I would love that's the thing too. The indie video game industry, trailers are so blah,
Yeah.
And they're poorly put together. I would love to be the Don LaFontaine of indie video game trailers. I would love to be the guy that did the trailers for indie video games. because I feel like that's where all the creativity is now.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
That's very true.
that's kind of like where my mind is at, like right now.
I want to see if there's anybody that can compete against you, Pete, for retro video game Name That Tune. It's this guy.
Oh, and he's gonna kick my ass right now. Watch it.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
All right, so we got 10 soundtracks. Call in your name. First to 5 wins.
Mm-hmm.
And we can continue to play the rest. I don't care. But let's see how this shakes out. Michael, you're welcome to call in. Call your name.
Thank you.
Here
Let's
goes.
do it.
All right, here we go.
First one.
Pat. Dragon Warrior.
Oh.
Can you lower it a little bit?
Oh, yeah.
Loud.
See? This is why we have to do this first.
Yeah, we don't.
Pete.
All right, Pete.
I'm gonna say Ultima.
Man. All right. Okay. Keep it going. Keep it going. You guys are on the
If they
right.
can't get it, they're not gonna figure it out.
I've never heard this before.
No?
No. Did
Yeah,
you
I
pick
give up.
two difficult ones?
All right.
What was
it? That was Final Fantasy.
Oh, fuck. See, I was close. We were both close.
Yeah, you're
We were
both close. You're both in the genre. Yeah.
Yeah.
The original Final Fantasy. Yeah, it definitely sounded like a.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, let's get something a little easier so we can get you guys on the board.
Okay. Pete.
Pat.
Oh,
Ninja Turtles.
Son of
The
a-
original one.
That's right.
Very nice. Very nice.
All right, on the board.
Nice.
Michael, why don't you keep score for us?
yeah. Let me do something here. Oh, okay, hold on.
Song 3.
Pete.
Pete.
Friday the 13th.
Oh no! Yes, it is. That was fast. That was
That
less
sounds
than
like
3
Zelda
seconds.
to me.
It sounded like a Zelda dungeon, yeah.
Because it has the sound. That's the sound quality of LJN games. That's why it's
Mhm.
like.
Those pieces of
No.
shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's discussed in the book, too. How they're a fucking disaster.
They are.
Oh.
Here we go.
Pete. Kid Icarus or Kid Icarus. how you say it.
Man,
Yep.
Come on, dude.
Son of a bitch. Oh.
brutal, Pete. How do
I'm
you do
sorry.
it? How do you do it?
He's good.
I've played way too many old video games, man.
Mhm.
Here we go.
And I listened to them too. So
So what is that? We got Pete's got
3-0.
3. 3
Yeah.
nothing.
He's got 3.
Pete.
Oh, I know this, too. Fuck.
Life Force.
It is Life Force.
I just did a video on this on the site like 3 weeks ago.
I'm sorry, Patrick. I'm
No,
sorry.
it's okay. You're great, man.
Oh yeah, this is really nice. We invite you on a podcast, and we just fucking whoop your
No,
ass.
it's okay.
Here we go.
Pat. RC Pro.
I'll give it to Pat.
RC Pro Am it is.
There you go. You didn't shut me out, motherfucker.
And here we go.
Pete. Marble Madness.
It is Marble Madness.
Very nice. Yeah, I didn't know that.
Oh man, we're down to 2 already. It went by so fast. You guys get them so fast that the game's just like over.
Good, we don't get a copyright strike.
It's true.
Nice. Sure.
Pete. Silver Surfer.
It is Silver Surfer.
Sounded like European porn to me. Yeah. I have that game. Oh my god.
That game's impossible.
Yeah.
I don't know. You beat it, didn't you, Jeff?
I have beaten it before you.
You can
Listen to
play
me.
the hardest video games and just beat them.
This interview should have like totally been in person. This is so messed up. I feel at one with you guys.
All right. Sadly, we're coming to our last game.
Mm-hmm.
I know it, but I'm not going to say it. I want to see if Patrick knows it.
Fuck yeah, I don't know. I was gonna say bad. I was gonna say bad dudes, but no.
Nah, it's CNC Surf Design.
Oh wow, and I have that game. Holy shit. Yep. Wow.
That game does not hold up. I will say that one.
No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't. But it was great when it first came out, man. I picked it up like maybe 2 years ago for $4 at this retro game store, and one of my friends was like, "Holy shit, for $4?" I'm like, "Yeah." So
it's definitely worth $4.
Definitely worth $4.
Do you have a favorite retro store that you go to in the area?
Yeah, but you know what the thing is? It's like they don't last long. You know, like the stores don't last long. There's one that I used to hang out in a lot, and they're still open. They're still a good store. It's called Brooklyn Videogames. It's on 78th Street and 28th Avenue in Brooklyn. They pretty much have like whatever you're looking for. Like if you ask them to get something, they can find it for you and stuff like that. That's a really good retro store. I used to run tournaments out of there, too. Like we did this epic WWE No Mercy tournament, a tag team tournament, and we had people doing like their own custom entrances with their own custom music and stuff, and like we had Smash Brothers tournaments there. Like I did that for like 2 years, but then it was like I had to focus on the book, so. You know, and then I had the kids. So, but those guys are really nice at Brooklyn Video Games. That's a great, like I said, that's a great little store. And I had, they were sponsoring one of my video podcasts for like a year. So I would go there and I would just pick out a game from the store and they would give it to me and I would do like a little video on it. So everything from like Wizards and Warriors to like baseball on the Game Boy and like.
Oh wow, that was a question I was going to have for you because I've been going through your. Gem or Junk videos. Yeah. And it's such an eclectic collection of games that I was like, I wonder how he like decided to just.
Yeah, like the guy.
That makes sense.
The guy that runs the store is awesome, and I would just go in there and I'd be like, "What do you got?" And he's like, "Oh, a bunch of people brought in this stuff," and I'm like, "All right, I'll take this." And he would let me keep the games, so it was like I would promote his store at the end of every video, and I would put a link in every post and stuff like that. So I really helped him build his customer base in the neighborhood. So it helped him a lot and it helped build up my collection. So now he's still a great guy and I still talk to him all the time. It's just I don't have the time to like go to the store like 2 or 3 times a week like I used to. So I usually just pick stuff that's in my collection now, or I'll run an emulator or something like that. So yeah. But yeah, that's a really cool retro store. So too, eBay. I love eBay. And then like Instagram, man, is like there's so many claim sales on Instagram. Like my Virtual Boy wasn't working anymore, and I was really pissed off about it because I mean, who doesn't want to have a seizure playing Mario Tennis? And I found somebody that had a Virtual Boy, and they sold it to me for $25. They're like, "Oh, I don't know if it works or not." So I was just going to use it for parts. And
wow, that's a steal.
And I took it home, and I mean, I didn't take it home. They mailed it to me, and I opened it up, and I turned it on, and it works perfectly. And I was like, holy shit. I've bought so many great games off of Instagram claim sales for nothing, for like $10 here, $5 here. It's like, it's great. And that's my thing. Like, I own a lot of great games, but I like to buy games that have like stories. So it's like when my nephew comes in my man cave, I could be like, you see this game? This game is important because of blah, blah, blah. You know, it's like whenever my nephew comes in and like he goes to a game, I could tell him like, you know, what game inspired it and da 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 da. Like the other day he picked up Mortal Kombat and I was like, before we talk about Mortal Kombat, let's talk about this. And I pulled out Karate Champ. I'm like, let's talk about how important this game was and blah, 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 blah. You know, so that's kind of like the purpose of like my collection. It goes hand in hand with my book, you know. So
yeah, oh, that's cool, man.
I'm trying to like take the pain away from Pete, just like completely beating the ever loving shit out of me.
I'm sorry, dude.
No,
what he does.
Okay. It's all right. No, it's great, man. You are freaking awesome. It's funny too because somebody, when I was writing the book, when I first started writing the book, somebody was like, "Oh, you should do a book on like game music, and I was like, holy shit. I'm like, that would be a great idea, but I'm like, I don't know how many, like, it's such a niche, you know?
Yeah.
That is
So-
a niche, yeah.
Yeah. So,
You know what's interesting is that like I got into ROM hacking with my brother a little bit,
mhm.
and apparently a lot of there was no standard back then because how it's coded, the game engine is like different for every game.
Yeah.
So
Uh-huh.
like trying to find the values in the hex editors and everything was just a
Yep.
disaster.
It's like one of the stories for NHL PA 93 and NHL 94. They have two different programmers, and one of them like had never really like developed a game before, and the next developer that took it over was a much more seasoned developer, and he was like, "How the fuck does this even work?" It was like in a completely different language, you know.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right, man. It's just so different from what it is today. And the crazy part is like if you really wanted to, you can go online and you can get like the same dev kits that like the books that like the guys from that worked on the Atari 2600 got. You know, you can get all those PDFs are online now. So if you wanted to develop your own Atari game or your own Commodore 64 game or anything like that, you could learn how to code in that style. But everyone is so focused on like, oh, they want it to be beautiful and they want it to be this. Like, that's the sad thing, man. These classic gameplay, like gameplay styles, they're like mimicked in all of these big games, and people are just too stupid to realize that like they're getting like Super Mario Brothers just like with fantastic graphics, or they're getting like RC Pro-Am with better graphics and stuff. They like gameplay is like where it's at every single time, because I've played some beautiful games before that just played like utter shit,
Yep.
So crazy.
Yeah.
I can't believe my daughter stayed asleep this entire time. I am so proud of her right now.
It's crazy, man. How old is she?
She's gonna be a year on February 28th. So
Cool.
yeah.
Jeff,
so.
is yours a year old yet?
Yeah, she just turned 15 months.
I thought
That's
so,
awesome.
yeah.
That's awesome.
She's
Mine
awesome.
are 11.
She's got an ear infection right now, so.
Yeah. I was just telling my wife before the other day, like earlier today, I was like, she has not gotten SICK once in the first year, so we're like super happy. Like not a fever, not a this, not a cold. So I'm so blessed, that she has not been sick or anything. She's just like the perfect little happy bundle of joy, So
Yeah.
and at the end of the
rub
day,
that in.
I'm sorry. At the end of the day, I mean, this whole thing was for her, so she could say, like, there's going to be kids in school that are going to say, oh yeah, well, my daddy does this, my daddy does that, and she could say, yeah, my daddy plays video games, but he wrote a book about it. That was like the whole that was the whole point of this whole thing,
Yeah.
Well, that's great, man. I think we're we only have just a few more minutes left. Actually, we don't have any.
But thanks a lot for coming on the cast.
This is
man.
fantastic, man.
I'm gonna promote the shit out of it. I'm gonna share it all over the place for you guys. Like I had a really fun time talking with you guys. You guys are great. Yeah, anything that I could ever do to help you guys out, I'm more than happy to. So thank you so much for inviting me into your world for 2 hours.
Yeah, and if you ever think about pointing your eye towards the animation industry, definitely call one of us.
Well, the book is The Minds Behind the Games, Interviews with Cult and Classic Video Game Developers. It's coming out soon.
Very soon. I play the Padre. Play it. Play the Padre.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Thank you for the code too. That was
awesome. No problem.
Yeah, I found actually like the easiest way to find the game. Well, I'm sure it's easy once you're just on Steam, but if you're just trying to take a look at it, just type in the Padre game.
Yes.
It's a lot easier if you just type in Padre game. You're pretty screwed.
Because then you'll get that shitty baseball team that plays in San Diego that nobody watches.
Yep.
It's like the worst name for a team. It sounds like a disease. like Pete, did you hear, man? Like Cliff got the Padre. The doctors don't know like what they're gonna do. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, man.
Absolutely, man. This has been just a few more minutes podcast where three veterans of the animation and video game industry talk about exactly that: animation and video games. All right. See you, everybody.
what you guys have
Oh,
to
that
say.
is a giant fucking spider walking by me.
There's giant spiders in the game too.
There's a little bitch coming out.
See, I told you. Hold on. You talk amongst
Gotta go
yourself.
Squidges. Yeah.
This is
So-
why
Is he screaming?
As the giant spider walked by him, he fucking screamed like a little bitch.
we
Got him.